You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, it's March the 28th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News, live here at the Legacy420.com news desk. Hey, what do you think, Glenn?
I think I would need some sun. I'm missing my son. Come to Canada, all I see is clouds and dreary weather.
Still dealing with those Costa Rica withdrawals, are you?
Yeah, my tan's almost completely gone. It's horrible. One month in Canada, hey, and now I'm all in the dumps. I love this country. I just hate this time of year, you know?
Yeah. You're dealing with that, with another round of, what's that? I don't know what they call it, SAD or something, because of the...
Yeah, seasonal affective disorder, I think it's called.
Correct, yeah.
It might be, you never know, right?
Yeah, well, you never know. Alrighty, well, that's good. You know, it won't be long, though, man. It won't be long.
No, I know. I'm sitting right beside my motorcycle. It's just waiting to go.
I'm already seeing motorcycles around here.
I saw a couple brave souls here, but it's too cold for me. I'm a wimp. I need warmth.
Hey, I know what you mean, man. I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Well, what do you say? We get on with the news?
Sounds good to me.
All right. First story up comes to us from MJ Biz Daily. And the headline says, tax reforms, pharmacy sales among Canada's cannabis law reform recommendations.
A government-appointed panel of experts is analyzing Canada's adult use legislation law, or legalization law. The Cannabis Act has recommended the country enable pharmacy access for medical cannabis and reconsider how excise tax is applied to recreational products. The proposals are part of a final report, 18 months in the making, that lays out 54 recommendations and a number of observations for the federal government to consider.
Some of the recommendations align with industry expectations, such as allowing pharmacies to sell medical cannabis products, which the largest pharmacy chain in the country, Shoppers Drug Mart, has been calling for.
Yep.
Canada's cannabis industry expressed disappointment with some other recommendations and omissions.
For instance, the panel called for the government to maintain the limit of 10 milligrams of THC per edibles package, which businesses have long derided as a gift to the illicit market, and very true, it is.
Oh, we read it. We were starting to go through it last night on the Pace Radio show, and we're just getting into the observations. And when we read that part where they didn't recommend to increase to 10 milligrams, we just went, what?
Yeah, it's a plain. I don't believe that they didn't do it, and it makes sense to me. Every single person I've talked to that uses them says the exact same thing.
Yeah, and it's exactly right when they say businesses that belong to right as a gift to the illicit market.
Most definitely, you can get what you want somewhere else.
It doesn't fall in line what they say the government's objective is. You know, they go along within the report. They talk about the health and safety parts and to make sure that the government is doing, you know, what they're trying to achieve. And, you know, if they're trying to achieve to get rid of the illicit market, would they not try to compete?
I don't believe they're just trying to collect tax. That's all there's nothing to do with anything else. They're trying to collect tax. You sell a smaller amount, but you sell a whole bunch of packages of it, you collect more tax.
More tax. Okay.
Yeah.
On the next.
The report also acknowledged barriers and challenges facing First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities and entrepreneurs, citing MJ Business Daily research about their exclusion from the Cannabis Act. Yeah, and I have noticed that Métis are excluded from the Cannabis Act, and a lot
Yeah.
of First Nations, and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and that was acknowledged in the report from like parts of the part what we had gone through last night was that these communities have not been involved and they should be.
Yep.
Yeah. So this has led to significant public health and safety challenges in many communities and equitable economic development opportunities. According to the report written by Chair Morris Rosenberg, he was a former deputy minister under 2 federal governments.
There's an urgent need to re-engage on these issues, consistent with the Government of Canada's commitment to recognize the rights of Indigenous peoples and with a shared commitment to all parties to protecting public health and public safety. None of the panel's 54 recommendations are binding, and it's unclear to what extent the federal government is committed to implementing them.
Exactly.
Not very.
Yeah, that's part of the concern. But they say, moving forward, according to the report, it will be important for the Canadian government to allocate appropriate funding and resources to ensure the effective implementation of the cannabis framework. Canada's federal government alone employs hundreds of people to regulate cannabis, meaning it's an expensive system to maintain.
Yeah. And specifically, the authors noted the needs to include allocating resources to areas that did not initially receive dedicated funding, such as research on the therapeutic potential of cannabis, and that should have been a no-brainer from day one.
Hey, that's right, and this is where I applaud this report because they're saying, hey, this stuff's should be done.
Yeah,
it's not,
and it's not like they're not collecting any tax money. So spend a little bit of it fixing this, or at least checking it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Prevention and treatment programming. And in some circumstances, difficult decisions will need to be made about when or the extent to which our recommendations can be implemented, the report notes.
Yeah. While some new investments may be required, we encourage all levels of government to consider how existing resources can be redirected and to consider how cannabis fits into broader priorities. Now, as far as tax reform, they say the panel made a number of recommendations regarding excise taxes applied to the federal regulated businesses.
And suggestions in this area include further review of Finance Canada of the excise tax model overall, recognizing the average price of cannabis has decreased significantly since legalization, resulting in higher excise payments as percentage of sales. Higher potency products being subject to more tax than lower potency products. I don't agree with that. The development of an excise tax sharing framework with First Nations, reviewing whether excise tax should still be applied to medical cannabis. And yeah, I fully agree with the last two.
The last one. I was waiting for a comment after the one before that, which is the development of an excise tax sharing framework with the First Nations. So are they suggesting that they should be putting a tax on the cannabis being sold at First Nations?
I hope they're not, and I don't see how that could ever be enforced.
Well, the development of an excise tax sharing framework.
I think the meaning of that is the excise tax that already exists on cannabis. Part of it would go to First Nations to help them with their opportunities. And I hope that's what they mean. I hope that's what they mean. I really do, because you can't. There's no way they're going on to the reserves and starting to apply taxes. It's not happening. It won't happen.
I've seen some article. It talks about them wanting to tax the cannabis on the reserves, and it was even getting into the fuel end of things as well, and the tobacco. So,
good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, to continue with this story, it says some industry sources expressed hope the federal government will hear the report's calls for excise tax reform when the next federal budget is announced in mid-April. In its report in advance of the 2024 federal budget, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance made a number of recommendations, including changing the duty so it's limited to a 10% ad valorem rate, meaning 10% of the value of the transaction.
Okay. Recommendation number 27 called on Finance Canada to consider a review of the excise tax model, recognizing that it originally designed when the average price of dried cannabis was significantly higher than it is today. The duty currently imposed on producers dried cannabis is either $1 Canadian per gram or 10% of the value of the gram, whichever is greater. This can end up amounting to upwards of 30% of cannabis revenue.
Yes.
30 points.
Yeah. I got the animals at the door again, but I'll get my paragraphs done and then you can take over. The same recommendations asks Finance Canada to consider making reforms to the excise tax regime to apply progressively higher duties on cannabis products with higher quantities or concentrations of THC in order to discourage the consumption of higher risk cannabis products. Canopy Growth Corp CEO David Klein suggested a limit of 10% of the ad volume rate would be a leap forward and would still align with the original intent of the excise regime.
And we welcome the recommendations of the expert panel and encourage the government to use next month's federal budget to take the urgent action on the greatest issues impacting the industry, including by reviewing the excise model for adult use, as well as reconsidering the application of tax on medical cannabis, he told MJ Biz Daily. Pharmacy access for medical cannabis. In another potentially meaningful recommendation for the industry, the panel asked Health Canada to allow pharmacies to distribute cannabis products to patients with a medical authorization. Recommendation 42 asked provinces, territories, and the regulatory authorities for pharmacists to consider supporting the new access channel for patients once federal changes are made.
Currently, medical cannabis patients in Canada receive the medicine via courier directly from the supplier, grow it themselves, or designated someone to grow it for them. Pharmacy access is not allowed. Outside North America, medical cannabis is almost always distributed in pharmacies, not via physical dispensaries as in the United States. I believe that there's people who will really welcome the fact that they can get their medicine at the pharmacies like they get their other medicine at the pharmacy.
I think they would feel more comfortable, especially the older generation, if they're
Correct.
walking into a place that they regularly go to for, I don't know, their heart medicine or whatever they're getting. I think that's a lot more comfortable atmosphere for them.
Yeah, and I recently had an interview with Dr. Daniel Baer of Humber College in Toronto, and he's working with pharmacies and pharmacists in order to educate them. And he's doing a survey, and he's asking patients and people to do the survey in order to help him educate the pharmacists.
I have huge questions, though. If you're not allowed to recommend a certain cannabis for a certain ailment, as you are when you're a bud tender, you're not allowed to do that. How is the
because a bud tender isn't medically trained?
No, but a pharmacist, there's literally thousands and thousands of strains.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
The education is like a never-ending. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I'm sure it is with just regular prescription drugs. Same thing, never-ending.
Yeah.
There's always new drugs coming into the system.
Yeah, I guess so. They must have good memories. I'll give them that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Deepak Anand, who's the principal of ASDA Consultancy Services in Surrey, British Columbia, said pharmacy access would be a significant improvement to medical access to the medical access regime. This would benefit patients by addressing concerns about delays in mail delivery, product shortages, and allowing them to consult with pharmacists regarding drug interactions or side effects. Yes, that's a really good point right there.
It is encouraging to see that the panel suggests that Health Canada prioritize efforts to integrate cannabis into the standard drug approval pathways in conventional medical care rather than separate medical access program, he says. This would provide critical and increased avenues for patients to access medical cannabis, reduce stigma, and improve overall patient care. And that was more of what Deepak had to say.
Another significant recommendation calls for Health Canada to prioritize efforts to move beyond a distinct medical access program so that cannabis is considered within standard drug approval pathways and part of conventional medical care. All right. The committee said that should start with the rapid advancement of a pathway for cannabis health products containing CBD.
Yeah, CHPs be available just over the counter, just like other lotion, hand cream, stuff like that.
Yep.
Facial scrubs, suppositories, things that are in a recreational store that really aren't recreational. They're more health and wellness.
Yeah, for sure they are.
Yeah. In a separate recommendation, the committee said Health Canada should maintain the medical access program. Here, here. Under the cannabis regulations with certain improvements. Noted that a scientific advisory committee commissioned by the federal government determined more than 2 years ago that CBD should be made available through the National Health Products over-the-counter pathway.
Yep. It's encouraging to see the panel urging fast progress on this matter, Anand said. CBD plays a significant role in promoting health and wellness, and patients should have access to it through mainstream channels like health food and grocery stores rather than solely relying on cannabis retail stores. And I will say something, it is very difficult to find dried CBD flower in Fredericton.
Oh, really?
It's very difficult unless you want a higher THC level. And my son uses it, but he doesn't use THC at all. So he did find a place at one to one, and it's a pretty reasonable ratio, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good ratio.
It's only one place here.
Wow.
You can't find it, and I'm not talking about Cannabis New Brunswick. I'm talking about off the.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now here comes the controversial part that we were talking about earlier. As it says, the controversial recommendation in the report calls on the government to maintain the current level of 10 milligrams of THC per package, even though the illicit cannabis market often has them around 10 or 100 to 200 times that limit. Ultimately, we felt that there are too many unknowns and too much uncertainty about the likely consequences of increasing the amount of THC in these products, according to the report. So why don't we go to districts that have legal access to 100 milligrams, such as down in the U.S., in the different states, and see what's going on down there?
I'm surprised. They always couch this as we're protecting your children, but they didn't mention that here. So I am surprised by that. Anyway, I fully disagree with what they're saying here. I don't personally use a lot of products like this, but I know a lot of people who do.
Right.
And the 10 milligrams is just an arbitrary limit that's too low for almost everybody.
Yeah. Okay. They say that therefore we are in the view that the prudence is warranted here, and accordingly we recommend that the current level be maintained and that research be undertaken that will fill critical knowledge gaps related to this issue.
And Daniel Baer, who's the director of Humber College's Center for Social Innovation in Toronto and a drug policy researcher, suggests that maintaining the 10 milligram limit might not be prudent. He said low THC limit is driving medical cannabis patients to the illicit market, and he's absolutely right.
Yeah, that was the guy that I was talking about, Dr. Dr. Daniel Baer. Yeah, that's him. Okay. He's the fellow who's doing the survey. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Maintaining such a low THC limit in the non-medical legal market unnecessarily inflates costs to those consumers and maintains one of the only remaining advantages the illicit market holds over the legal market, he said.
Medical consumers often need higher doses of THC or CBD than are commonly found in the retail market. By limiting the edible dose, the committee forces people to either shop illicit sources or try to navigate the unwieldy medical market, he says.
Some members of the Canadian cannabis industry were disappointed the report didn't dip deeper into the microeconomic challenges imposed on the industry by the government. Organigram Holdings CEO Bina Goldenberg said the recommendations found within the report were not robust enough to deliver the impactful changes the industry needs.
While we are pleased to see acknowledgement the excise framework needs to be revisited, the move to taxing higher THC products at a higher rate is likely to drive some consumers back to the illicit market. He wrote in a public statement, and she's right there as well.
Yeah, she is.
Goldenberg was disappointed the panel recommended that Canada maintain plain packaging and label requirements, saying it hinders the ability of legal producers to convert illicit market consumers.
A separate recommendation, however, said Health Canada should consider allowing a portion of a cannabis package to be transparent, but only for dried cannabis, not edibles. Rick Savoyne, chair of industry group Cannabis Council of Canada, told MJ Biz Daily via the email that his group's expectation was that there would be some specific recommendation to guide the government towards immediate action to make the industry more viable. And it's true, because when I've gone into a Cannabis New Brunswick store here, you can't see anything. You can't smell anything. I really don't like the experience. I want to see it and I want to smell it.
Yeah. They say that still, Savone welcomed the recommendations to focus on enforcement against the illicit market, but without concrete steps on how to tackle the problem. We fail to see how this will happen. The upcoming budget is not the time for incremental and unimpactful changes. Our sector needs immediate excise duty relief, and nothing less will do. Well, Glenn, that was a huge story. Very, very long. I don't normally go 20 minutes on a story. But I
like that story, though. It was a good story.
Yeah, being that it is review, it's it's important. It's the Cannabis Act. It's our cannabis laws, and this was a recommendation that people have been waiting for, and that's why I'm going through almost point by point on the Pace Radio show last night, and I'll be doing it going forward. So I wanted to make sure that we covered as much of that one as possible.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. So. All righty. I'll get that one out of the way, and we'll move on to our next story of the day. And this one comes to us from StratCan. And the headline on this, which is good for patients, people, listen up. It says, Alberta worker wins appeal to have medical cannabis covered by Workers' Compensation Board.
On March 19th of this year, the Appeals Commission for Alberta Workers' Compensation reversed the 2023 Workers' Compensation Board Dispute Resolution and Decision Review Body decision. That decision from 2023 ruled that the worker was not entitled to coverage for medical cannabis based on a workplace accident in January 2011, in which the worker injured their ankle after falling on a patch of ice. Throughout the claim, the WCB had accepted the worker's claim for a left ankle fracture and chronic regional pain syndrome, but in March 2015, the case manager denied the authorization of cannabis for medical purposes as it was considered a non-standard medical aid in use for treatment of chronic pain. Okay.
Then, upon further review, the WCB determined in March of 2017 that the worker's use of medical cannabis was, in fact, related to the injuries accepted under the claim. More than 5 years later, in September 2022, the WCB informed the worker that any extension of the provision of medical cannabis after September the 1st, 2022 would be reviewed based on new policy criteria for authorization of medical cannabis.
For ongoing coverage, WCB requires a clinical reassessment to be conducted by the authorizing physician and confirmation of functional improvement every 3 months. WCB's policy states that it will continue coverage if there is sufficient evidence that the cannabis is effective, measurable treatment goals are reached and maintained, and there are no adverse effects that outweigh the benefits of the cannabis. Then in February 16, 2023, following further reviews by WCB medical consultants, a WCB case manager ruled that the worker did have a designated condition named under the new policy criteria, but that the worker had exceeded the standard for maximum allowable THC content and maximum daily use of 3 grams a day with a maximum allowable THC content of 90 milligrams per gram or 9% THC.
Wow. That must be part of somebody's policy there.
Are they taking blood work from this guy? Like, how do they know what he's
because Yeah, because of this determination, WCB ruled that the worker did not meet all the criteria that would allow the agency to authorize medical cannabis. The ruling was immediately appealed by the worker and upheld just a few days later before it was sent to the Dispute Resolution and Decision Review Body. In their decision, the review body noted that the worker's longtime physician had supported his use of cannabis to deal with chronic pain from the accident, noting that the worker uses different amounts depending on his level of pain. The physician argued that his patient represented an exemption to the WCB rules of more than 3 grams a day or no more than 9% THC.
And the physician, excuse me, the physician also indicated that the worker had not used cannabis prior to his injury and had only tried it after conventional treatment for his pain did not work. He described himself as feeling like a zombie before trying medical cannabis, according to the the review board's ruling. The worker told the panel that the medical cannabis does not take the pain away, but it allows him to function, to relax, and he is able to carry on a conversation with people, states the final ruling. It has allowed him to have a normal relationship with his wife, family, and friends. He is aware enough of what dose and route he requires to prepare himself for outings and interactions and events such as the hearing. And 100% what this guy is saying is true. I've been through not the same, but situation like this, and this is 100% true what he's saying here.
Yeah. The man says he's been using 4 grams per day for approximately 5 years without limits on THC or CBD, following the guidance of his doctor. He generally smokes, but occasionally vapes dried flower because edible products are often too expensive. He also uses edibles in the form of gummies, as well as topical gels and patches. Although he uses THC products, the majority of the products he consumes are primarily CBD rich. Following the WCB ruling that said he was consuming more cannabis than necessary, the man also worked with his physician to lower his daily intake of cannabis, which resulted in an inability to eat or sleep due to the pain. He's only 1 gram above what they recommend. Like they say 3, he's at 4. Like
I don't even know if they should be able to recommend.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I have with it. This guy knows what he requires. And it's the same with anybody who uses this as a medicine. You know what you require and you go to that level.
Yeah.
So following these results, it was his physician who then advised him to go back to his usual dosage and modes of consumption. In the final ruling, the review panel found that the majority of the evidence supports the worker's use of medical cannabis under the WCB's criteria in WCB Policy 0406, Part 2, Application 6, Question 8.
There you go. It's unfortunate the patient had to battle for it, but
he won. He won, though.
He won. Correct. I see it's the bottom of the hour, so why don't we just? Yeah, I know, eh? Well, we only got the 2 stories in because that one was so long, but it was so important that I thought that we should go through the whole thing, right? So.
Yep.
All right, time for us to take a break. When we get back, we'll continue things. You're watching Psychedelics Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and CBG TV.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle.
Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBGTV broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
PACE Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and in the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with, and then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we're live with Psychedelics and Cannabis Education and News. Well, Glenn, we got a lot of stories to cover if we're going to get close to the done.
I don't know if
today.
we're going to make it through these ones.
I don't think so, but we got some stories, and we'll just keep going until we run out of time. That's all. All righty, here we go with the first one after the break. This one comes from MJ Biz Daily. Ontario eyes a $600 million cannabis windfall.
It's a windfall.
Windfall. Oh, this money's just going to fall in their hands.
Yeah, I like Ontario's provincial government is budgeting for a record windfall of more than 600 million Canadian dollars in the next fiscal year from cannabis wholesale profits and its portion of the federal excise tax. The windfall comes after a federal report to the Canadian Finance Minister, Christian Freeland, revealed that after 5 years of legalization, there are no licensed producers of legal cannabis products that are consistently profitable. But the government is.
Yeah. Oh, this is the provincial government here, obviously. According to the provincial budget released Tuesday for the fiscal year of April 2024 to March of 2025, the government said it expects to receive $379 million from its portion of the federal cannabis duty, a 22% increase over the 23-24 fiscal year. That despite that the cannabis producers in Ontario had federal excise debt of totaling $100 million as December 2023.
The number of federal tax delinquent cannabis companies in Ontario increased from 65 in January 2023 to 80 as of December 2023. Ontario's portion of the federal excise duty is paid via the Coordinated Cannabis Taxation Agreement, which the province signed with the federal government before legalization.
The deal effectively grants 75% of the excise duty collected by the federal government from Ontario wholesale cannabis sales to the provincial government. The federal government keeps the rest. So the federal government only keeps 25% of the excise tax that they collect. The rest of it goes to the provinces.
Yep. Still too much.
Yeah.
The federal government keeps, Ontario also dips into cannabis industry coffers via the province-owned Ontario Cannabis Store, which has a monopoly over adult use wholesale sales in the province. The OCS also makes a small amount of money from its online sales channel. A small amount of money. I wonder what that is.
No, that's online sales. Yeah, it is small. The province is forecasting that the OCS will earn a profit of $225 million for the 24-25 fiscal year. That's a slight decrease from the $234 million that they made in the previous year. They're making, basically in 2 years, $500 million. Well,
the producers are losing $100 million. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's not counting the federal government's 25% of it.
No. This is just provincial. This is just provincial money. Yeah.
The OCS has come under fire for reporting profits beyond what some industry sources consider to be reasonable, considering the provincial Crown Corporation has been the most profitable enterprise in the cannabis industry. Think about that. All the stores, all the producers, billions of dollars invested, and who makes the money? The government.
Now look at the next paragraph. For comparisons,
Ontario's expected 604 million cannabis windfall would exceed what the province is expected to collect from taxes applied to beer, wine, and spirits combined. Of course.
Separately, Ontario's budget committed $31 million over the next 3 years to crack down on illegal cannabis businesses, especially those which operate online.
Take out the competition,
The government is committed to combating the illegal cannabis market to ensure the integrity of the regulated private retail model and address the significant health and safety risks. As I said last night, where's the bodies from all these illegal stores?
We've been talking about this for years and years and years. Yeah. Where are the bodies?
The new cash will go to the Ontario so-called Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team, which is an initiative led by the Ontario Police. So the new cash is all going to go to law enforcement. It's not going to go to research.
I got to say one thing positive. I absolutely love the name, Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team. I really like that they use joint in there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little kid today. I don't know. Find that funny. All the money goes to the police, as normal. As the CEO of cannabis retailer in 58 legal stores and more than 600 employees in Ontario, I welcome the Ford government's decision to take aggressive action against illegal online cannabis dispensaries who blatantly target kids and sell unsafe products. High Tide CEO Raj Grover said in a statement on X, formerly Twitter. Grover was referencing Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. Are they blatantly targeting kids? I haven't read one story about them blatantly targeting kids.
No, I know. Yeah.
That's a weird one.
Basically, he's. I've just shut the story down. He's basically calling for the to go out the illicit market.
About your kids.
Yeah.
Always use that, eh?
The windfall. Let's play a little bit of money there.
And that's windfall.
Yeah, windfall.
How about it's money that came from someone else?
All these businesses struggling that employ people who pay income taxes to the provincial government, but yet you're willing to take all that money instead of allowing them to
We didn't even count the income taxes that all those employees pay.
Right.
That's in addition to what this is just the tax on the product, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, on to the next story. Here we go. This one comes to us from the International Cannabis Business Conference, and this headline is sad. Ireland has only approved 53 patients for medical cannabis in recent years. Like, not just last week. This is years. 53 patients in here.
Since 2019, 5 years. However, it took many years for patients to be permitted to safely access medical cannabis therapies in a European country. Medical cannabis policy modernization efforts have spread across the globe in recent decades, with many countries adopting medical cannabis policies and regulations that are more or less strict than others. Yep.
Ireland's medical cannabis program is much more restrictive compared to other nations, including nations in Europe, and that is reflected in the low number of patients that have received recent approvals in recent years. Around 53 people have been approved to take medical cannabis in recent years, with the number of conditions it can treat likely to be increased. 53 people.
I don't know how many people are in Ireland, but there's much more than 53. In a parliamentary response for independent TD, Violet Ann Wynne, Health Minister Stephen Donnelly, said the purpose of the program was to enable compassionate access to cannabis for medical reasons where conventional treatment had failed. Mr. Donnelly said it follows the clear pathway laid out by the Health Products Regulatory Authority in their expert report, Cannabis for Medical Use, a Scientific Review.
Medical cannabis programs are only as good as the number of qualifying conditions that patients can qualify for, and Ireland limits the program to spasticity associated with MS, intractable nausea, and vomiting associated with chemotherapy, and severe treatment-resistant epilepsy.
What about pain?
No.
Even in instances in which a patient suffers from one or more of those conditions, they can only be approved to seek medical cannabis therapies in Ireland after they have exhausted all other prescribed medications and treatment regimes. So you put them through hell.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense to me. It's got to be easier than that.
When we got, like, when our program started, we did have a list of conditions.
Yeah.
But at the bottom it had other, so the doctor could put that information in there.
And I think back then the biggest problem was none of the doctors were willing to prescribe it because they were all worried about losing their license or being sued, or
battle that way.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next story. This one comes to us from Mugglehead News. Headline says Alberta University kicks off major study on psilocybin for alcohol use disorder treatment.
The University of Calgary is about to start a major study on psilocybin-assisted therapy for the treatment of alcoholism. British Columbia's Filament Health Corp will provide magic mushroom extract needed for the research. The institution said this week that it will recruit 128 people suffering from alcohol use disorder. They will receive therapy sessions from a designated provider before and after taking psilocybin. The study will be supported by the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, a federal agency that invested over $2.75 million towards psilocybin studies last June.
Our study will help determine whether psilocybin combined with motivational enhancement therapy is a clinically feasible treatment for alcohol use disorder, that says Leo Mayo, who's the principal investigator. She emphasizes that the importance of maintaining scientific evidence on the potential efficacy of the alternative treatment. Mayo currently serves as the Parker Chair in Psychedelics at the university's Cummings School of Medicine. The position was named after the U of C graduate Jim Parker, who donated $3 million to the school in 2021. She is also a scientific advisor for the MDMA producer Pharmala Biotech Holdings and clinical advisor to the veteran psychedelic advocacy organization Heroic Hearts Canada.
The research that Dr. Mayo will be leading is key to realizing the enormous potential of psychedelics to alleviate suffering, Parker said 3 years ago. Mayo will be assisted by psychologist David Hodgkins. He will be in charge of training the therapists.
And he goes on to say it's important to collect solid and rigorous information on the use of psychedelic therapy. Alcohol use disorder is complex. There isn't one magic bullet that will be helpful for everyone.
And if you live in the Calgary area, you struggle with alcohol and are interested in participating in the trial, the university encourages you to send an email to pactlab@uccalgary.ca.
Clinical trials, Health Canada Special Access Program, and a Section 56 exemption are currently the only means of legally obtaining psilocybin mushrooms in Canada. And in an interview with CBC, Mayo stressed that taking the medicine in conjunction with therapy is very important for optimal results. She says the setting psilocybin is taken in and the mindset of the individual when they take it can also be crucial factors.
Yep.
So there you go.
And that Section 56 they were talking about, you need to get an exemption. It's very, very hard to get that exemption.
Oh, the SAP too.
It's really, really hard.
Hard on the lots of patients waiting. There's one guy waited over 500 days for the SAP program to be denied.
I read a story a couple months ago about a guy who had it for 2 years and then they took it away from him.
Yeah.
When he applied for the third year, and it doesn't make sense. But at least they're doing this. This is a great thing to be doing here.
The our friend Alison Murden, she's applied. She's been denied. She's always posting the benefits that she's getting from it. So, all right, on to the next story. This one comes to us from the Entrepreneur, and they're saying that Minnesota proposal would double cannabis patient home grow limits. All right, another good news story for the patients.
Medical cannabis patients in Minnesota would be allowed to grow up to 16 cannabis plants under a new proposal in the State House of Representatives, CBS News reports. Under current Minnesota law, any adult age 21 and older can grow up to 8 cannabis plants with a maximum of 4 flower plants at once. The proposal seeks to double that limit for people registered with the state medical cannabis program and would also allow patients to designate caregivers to grow for them.
As it stands, people with disabilities and conditions that qualify them to be on the medical program can only grow their own if they know how to, if they can afford to, and if their condition or living situation allows them to, or if there is someone who can gift them homegrown products. Yeah, that's too bad. See, we have the designated grower part of things. Minnesota's medical cannabis program launched in 2014 and covers 19 qualifying conditions, including cancer, chronic pain, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Additionally, the state's adult use cannabis legalization policy took effect last year. Although the adult use cannabis market's launch in Minnesota is not expected until next year at the soonest.
In the meantime, cannabis regulators recently announced new restrictions on hemp-derived cannabinoid products after an investigation found that many products available at hemp retailers tested above the legal Delta-9 THC limit.
There you go. Another story. Yeah, it's good to see the patients can double the numbers. Here you can look at it. That would be equivalent to what? I'm trying to think. 16. Maybe they had if someone had a license to, no, that doesn't even work. It's only a few grams, technically, according to our program, because our program is 5 plants for every gram, right? So 3 grams under our program. All righty. On to our next story. This one's coming to us from CBC News, and this person's got themselves in trouble because the headline says that woman who accidentally gave out cannabis edibles to Winnipeg trick-or-treaters sentenced to $5,000 in fines.
A woman who accidentally put cannabis candies in bags to hand out on Halloween after running out of loot for trick-or-treaters in 2022 broke down crying in a Winnipeg courtroom on Monday as a judge asked her to imagine what it might have happened if a young child had eaten the drug-laced candy she gave them. Tammy Sigadur was sentenced to pay a total of $5,000 in fines as part of a joint recommendation accepted by a judge for her role in handing out the cannabis edibles, which court heard were not Sigurdur's, are made to look nearly identical to regular Nerds brand candy and can't be bought legally in Canada.
The edibles ended up on a trick-or-treater's bag after Signor ran out of candy that night, then rushed to a closet in her house, which contained regular candy and the cannabis edibles, looking for extras to hand out. Without her glasses on, she filled plastic zipped sandwich bags with various candy and gum she found in the closet, not realizing about a dozen of the bags had edibles in them before she gave them to her husband to hand out at the door.
Court heard the edibles had been bought for Sigurdur's husband, who didn't notice they were in the sandwich bags before giving them out. The mistakes didn't come to light until a parent discovered one of the edibles in their child candy stash and contacted police. Crown Attorney Terry McComb said, "I'm pretty sure you've thought about this innumerable, if not thousands of times. What would have happened had this parent not seen the label?" Provincial Court Judge Raymond Wyant said Sigurdur in court on Monday.
And the thought that some child could have ingested this THC, some very young child, it could have caused long-lasting injuries or death, is almost too frightening to even compliment. Yes, Sigurdur replied through sobs. It is.
I don't know if what the strength were of these candies.
No.
I'm assuming that death would be super, super, super unlikely.
We're going to find that out in the next paragraph. You keep reading.
Police at the time said the incident, they got more than a dozen reports of cannabis candies being handed out to trick-or-treaters in Winnipeg's South Tuxedo neighborhood on October 31st, 2022. Officers later searched a home on Coleraine Crescent in connection with the reports. Packaging suggests the edibles had 600 milligrams of the psychoactive property in cannabis known as tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC. In Canada, edibles are legally only allowed to contain 10 milligrams per package. So there were 600 milligrams, but they don't explain how many candies were in the bag, so we have no idea how much was in each candy.
Yeah, the kids were aged between the ages of 6 to 16 years old, and none of them were harmed by the candies. Court heard that Sigurdur's error came to her attention after people started posting about the cannabis edibles found in children's Halloween candy on a community social media page, and she recognized the zipped plastic bag. Shortly after, she and her husband went to the police and gave detailed, lengthy statements about what had happened. So they came forward.
Obviously she phoned them and said, "Hey, we made a mistake." So that's probably why she only got a fine and not jail time.
Yeah. She says that she should have been more careful. Yeah. She says, "I also like to apologize if I have in any way caused distress to any children about Halloween and their safety and their enjoyment of the holiday. It was truly an accident, and at no time did I have any desire to harm anybody, especially children. No parent should have to worry about the children receiving a dangerous substance in their Halloween bag, and that was never my intention."
Well,
so there you go. Yep, we'll finish her off right there.
We got some comments.
Yeah, I got some comments here. Someone with an account just says, "The new cannabis law in Germany is really weird." We don't have a story on the Germany situation today, but look for one probably down the road. You're saying it's really weird. There's just so much today. That's all.
We're not going to get finished all the stories.
No, we're not going to get finished all the stories anyways that we do got here. All right. Well, let's see if we get one more story in here. And this, again, goes back to the youth and children and stuff like that. And this story comes to us from CTV News, and it says the youth diagnosed with cannabis-induced psychosis support dose recommendation. Now, I'm going to suggest the dose recommendation has to do with the government's report that was just released from that panel, because in that report there is a dose. They talk about the dose recommendations.
Okay,
so, go ahead.
2 young people who were diagnosed with cannabis-induced psychosis are supporting an expert panel's recommendation that Health Canada establish a standard dose for cannabis, saying it would help nudge people towards safer consumption. In a report released last week, the panel convened by the federal government to study legislation said that made cannabis legal in 2018 came up with 54 recommendations, including increasing the excise tax on high-potency cannabis. Always increase the tax, that makes sense. Revising packaging and labeling rules, and introducing other measures to mitigate health risks to youth.
And they say cannabis-induced psychosis is a particular concern as the concentration of THC can cause the high. Yep. And they say it has increased. The amount of THC is increased. And they say that experts who called for the total THC labels and standard doses to be listed on cannabis product packages. Panel said the standard dose would note the amount of cannabis that should be considered a single serving and help users make better choices.
Kalpit Sharma of Aurora, Ontario, and Heath D'Alesso of Montreal, both 24, had different paths to cannabis use, but were each diagnosed with psychosis due to the heavy consumption of the drug. While Sharma was tormented by voices and even hallucinated warnings that his family would die, D'Alesso also saw distorted faces and at one point couldn't recognize people.
A standard cannabis dose would help people make informed and safe choices, said Sharma, adding it's important for consumers to be aware that people can react differently to a certain amount of THC, so they should start with lower dose possible. I completely agree with him there. Start low before you go high, before you get too high. Yeah. He said he began smoking cannabis in India a year before moving to Canada in 2018 as cannabis was legalized. At 19, I started buying it at dispensaries, and slowly my thinking was that the more THC I smoke, the better high I'm going to receive.
About a year later, he started hearing voices that interfered with his studies in psychology at Toronto's York University. Before long, the hallucinations came with frightening warnings about his family. I would just be in this constant fear that my family's going to die, that somebody's going to get them, and that I have done something wrong, that I'm the root cause. The delusions and the paranoia on top of the voices were just making it really difficult to survive.
After Sharma ended up in hospital and was diagnosed with cannabis-induced psychosis at 21, he said he stopped using it but kept hearing voices. He also learned that a cousin was experiencing similar mental health issues unrelated to using it. So does that mean it's in the family? It's in your system?
Yeah.
Sharma got help through the Center for Addiction and Mental Health and continues taking medication. He has wondered if the cannabis triggered his mental health condition at an early age, then it may otherwise have been diagnosed.
If you do have a family history of psychosis, I would say consult a medical professional before consuming cannabis, said Sharma, a volunteer advisor on cannabis and psychosis with the Schizophrenia Society of Canada. D'Alesso said they started using cannabis at age 14 as a way to socialize with peers and to deal with anxiety and depression that started about a year earlier.
I was pretty daily cannabis user and identified openly as a stoner in high school, said D'Alessio, adding they quit cold turkey shortly after the hallucinations of less human faces began. They were diagnosed with cannabis-induced psychosis at age 17.
They keep saying they. I don't understand.
Yeah, well, it's the two of them, and they're related. This tells me because as far as the psychosis part of things, people who have their have psychosis or may have, like they say, may have psychosis should look into things before going ahead and using cannabis, because it could go ahead and trigger. I'm not reading it as they're saying that the cannabis actually caused it. It caused it to come out. It was probably already there.
I'm assuming it has to be there because it's not something I've ever experienced, and I don't know how to take it. It's strange to me. Like, I've never even got a hallucination from cannabis, so I don't understand it.
Yeah, and like I say, it affects everybody differently, and this is what's happened. So
yeah,
keep on.
10 milligrams of THC in an edible will affect you much differently than 10 milligrams that you smoke. Definitely. And I think that's where we need more than just a standard dose on labels, they said. We need more fulfilling drug education for the public in general, as well as for young people specifically. Education is especially needed if young people may be getting cannabis through the unregulated market, Alessio said. In Quebec, the legal age to buy cannabis is 21. Consumers in the rest of the country can purchase it at age 19, except in Alberta, where the legal age is 18. It's the same, like alcohol is the same kind of regime. Right?
The expert panel, which includes a clinical psychologist who studies the impact of substance use on the developing brains of adolescents, as well as cannabis-induced psychosis, said in an email via Health Canada that establishing comparable units for different product classes is complex, and there are large differences between how cannabis can be consumed, metabolized, and experienced. Correct. Despite the complexity, the panel feels it is important to give consumers simple, easy to understand information about the level of intoxication that they can expect from using a cannabis product.
It depends how many cannabis products they've used in the past. Mental health issues have long been associated with heavy cannabis use, and the latest Canadian study to make the link was published in February in the Lancet's open access journal, eClinical Medicine. It analyzed the health data of 12 million Ontarians between 2008 and 2019 and found that wild people of all ages who had a cannabis-related emergency room visit were at higher risk of developing new anxiety disorders. The risk was particularly great for males up to age 24.
Well, Health Canada said in an email that a standard dose for cannabis would be akin to standard drink for alcohol. Neither the federal or provincial governments have acted on the January 2023 recommendation for mandatory labeling of alcohol containers issued by the Canadian Centre of Alcohol, Substance Use and Addiction.
Go
ahead.
The Centre called for labels to indicate the number of standard drinks per container based on the concentration of alcohol in a beverage, as part of this latest guidance on alcohol use that recommends limiting consumption to 2 drinks per week. The guidelines on Health Canada's website continue to list limits 2 standard drinks per day for women and 3 drinks for men, based on recommendations from 2011.
There you go. Story's done. And we won't get to the last story that we had here, but that's fine. We got the hour in, we covered lots. That was just to let everybody know. The other story that we didn't get to was that the Virginia governor says anyone who thinks he'll sign a marijuana bill must be smoking something. Because
even if his own voters tell him to do it.
Yeah, everybody but him. He just says no.
No way.
You just, why go through the process of seeing what everybody wants and then just say, no, I don't want.
Well, the only thing I can say to that is
it's a waste of resources. They're always wanting to talk about saving money.
Yeah. No logic.
It's not, I understand that they have the right to do that, but it's like, as far as within their laws and stuff like that, they have those rights to do that. But just,
I think if you have a referendum on something and 70% or close to 70% of your population says that's what they want, and then you go and you say, F you, I'm doing whatever I want, you should not be in office, period.
Yeah. You're supposed to be doing what the people asked for, right? You represent the people. All righty. All right, Glenn, that's it. Anything before we sign off?
Nope. Peace out.
All right. From the Legacy420.com news desk, that's our news report for today. Thanks to our buds at the Camelford Lifestyle, Legacy420.com, and Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. In closing, we'd like to say thanks for tuning in and watching, or who knows, maybe you're catching the audio podcast afterwards. But don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.